सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौली स्फुरत् तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमां मीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यामलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम्। सान्निपातिकज्वर सततज्वर विषमज्वर ग्रहनक्षत्रदोषाञ्चान्या हर हर काली सर सर गौरी क्रमधमविद्ये आले माले काले बन्धे भज भज विद्ये मख मख विद्ये नाशय नाशय पापम् हर हर दुःस्वप्नम् विध्वंसय विध्वंसय विघ्नविनाशिनि रजनी सन्ध्ये मुन्दुभिनादे मानस्तोषे मानसवेगे शङ्खिनी चक्रिणी वज्रिणी गदिनी शूलिनी अपमृत्युविनाशिनी विश्वेश्वरी द्राविडी केशवदैते पशुपति सहिते धीममर्दिनि धमनी कामिनी शबरी विराटी वाचक्री। ॐ द्रं 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 ॐ द्रं गुरु गुरु
Namaste. Once again, a warm welcome to each one of you for this evening session. This is the 6th day of Global Festival of Yoga being organized by Indica Yoga. Indica Yoga, as you all know, is a platform that offers diverse and inclusive forms of yoga with the watchwords of authenticity, immersion, and transformation. And this evening, we have two wonderful people amongst us who will be giving us this session. I would like to introduce Soumya ji and also request Soumya ji later to introduce our main speaker, Dr. P. Rammanohar. Soumya ji is also one of our part of our anchors team, and she'll be a speaker, and you'll get to listen to her more in one of coming sessions. Soumya ji basically grew up in California in an ashram So though far from India, she imbibed all these qualities from here, and she has been in India for last 10 years, and she has started an NGO called Praful Urja. It's an NGO which trains yoga therapists to work with a variety of under-resourced communities. The Sangha has touched the lives of more than 500 individuals in Bangalore every week since 2013. She is also a Karnataka Yoga Council member of Women's International Chamber of Commerce, India. And she will be speaking one of the most interesting topics later in the coming weeks, that will be on wellness to the vulnerable communities. So with this brief introduction, I welcome you all, each one of you, for this session, and I request Soumya ji to take forward from this point onwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinayji, and namaste to everybody. Welcome to this evening's Global Festival of Yoga by Indica Yoga and in the Indic Academy. Let us start with just a few deep breaths. So after a long day and a long week of working, so gently close your eyes and just take 3 deep breaths. Just notice the qualities of your breath at this time. And when you're ready, you can gently come back with a few blinkings. Now, I know you are all in your own places and you probably have many other things to do right now, making dinner, bathing children, whatnot. However, I'd like to ask you to give your full attention to today's very special program by Dr. Rammanohar of the Amrita School of Ayurveda. As a part of the Amrita Institutes, Dr. Rammanohar has been appointed as the research director by Amma herself, Amma as Mata Amrita Anandamayi Devi, as genuine Satguru, whose careful selection through true understanding of the individual's capacity is unparalleled. Therefore, we are in for a treat. Dr. Rammanohar received his BAMS degree from Bharatiyar University in Coimbatore in 1991, and later an MD in Ayurveda degree from Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences in Bangalore, 2001. And he has been contributing to the field of Ayurvedic research for the last 24 years and has more than 60 publications with research papers published in the SCI research journals, as well as contributions in other journals and chapters for books. I'd like to especially note that he has researched a lot of historical Ayurvedic texts and lives of Ayurvedic physicians. So he's more than looking just at the modern time, rather he's looking at the lineages as well, and where Ayurveda has been, where it is now. So he has so much depth of knowledge historically as well. In addition, he has collaborated with researchers from across the world and even published in other languages such as German. Dr. Rammanohar was honored with the Ayurveda Marga Pravartaka Award by the L. Mahadevan Ayurveda Foundation in 2014. In 2016, he was awarded with the Puntotam Ayurveda Ashram Award for Bharadwaja Puraskaram and for his contributions to the research in Ayurveda. In 2017, he was honored with Dr. C. Dwarkanath Memorial Award by IASTAM for contributions to contemporary interpretations of the principles of Ayurveda. And he has been visiting for research purposes really all over the world, everywhere from the Western Europe, Germany, France, Netherlands, Italy, Austria, even former Soviet Republic, Latvia, Russia, Denmark, Belgium, Singapore, Switzerland, the UK, Canada, the US, and also in the Southeast Asia, as I mentioned, Singapore, Thailand, and Sri Lanka, for the promotion of Ayurveda. Today's topic is from illness to wellness to stillness. How Ayurveda leads to yoga and beyond. So before Dr. Rammanohar takes the stage, or the screen rather, if anybody has questions, please use the question and answer section Q&A section. If you have any comments or need information, you can use the chat box. So Dr. Rammanohar, thank you so much for being here, for your time. And I now hand it over to you to take the screen.
Namaste, Soumyaji, and thank you so much for the warm introduction. So let's start with a prayer. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Jagat Sarvam. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. It's a great pleasure and honor to be present here today to share my views and insights on this topic, from illness to wellness to stillness. How Ayurveda and yoga together helps us human beings to discover our higher potential and also complete the transformation and evolution of our own lives. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers, Indica Yoga, for having invited me to this event. So, according to Ayurveda, our life attains its highest fulfillment when we are able to make it an offering to creation itself. Because we see in Ayurveda a very clear focus on this ultimate goal of life. I do not know how many of you are familiar with what Ayurveda is all about, but the very word Ayurveda means the knowledge of life, the insight of life. If you go deeper into the Sanskrit roots and its interpretation, you could also interpret Ayurveda as the process through which life becomes aware of itself. And this possibility of life seeing itself, of life becoming aware of itself, is a privilege of, the human birth. And this is what Ayurveda also emphasizes, that in order to actualize this potential, we have to cultivate a way of life. We have to become fully aware of our existence, the tools that we have at our disposal, and by using it, complete this process, the final step in the process of the evolution of life on earth. Ayurveda says that the human being is an epitome of the universe. Purushoyam Loka Samhita. We are just a part of this vast cosmos. We have sprung forth from this cosmos, and the climax of the manifestation of life is also the reunion with the source itself. So this is what Ayurveda says, that the word ayus actually means the living process. It actually means that which comes to an end, that our embodied existence has a limit in time and in space, and that in that time span that is available for us, we have to discover the ways and means to reunite with the source from which we have sprung forth in the first place. So Ayurveda says that the human being has the potential to grow as big as the universe itself. I mean, of course, I do not mean at the physical level. It's not that we can become as big as the universe physically, but at the level of our deepest consciousness, we can become united with the vast expanse of the universe itself. So what is most interesting about Ayurveda is that this vision of life, if you look at Ayurveda and if you want to give a definition, often we have heard that Ayurveda is, not just a medical system, but it's a way of life. I would go even further and say that Ayurveda is also giving you a vision of what life is, a vision that puts you on the path of self-transformation and self-evolution. And so the Ayurvedic definition of health itself is very interesting, which we will dwell upon in a little bit detail in the limited time that is available to us. So this goal of life is actually very beautifully defined in Ayurveda using a very simple Sanskrit terminology called Ayu, Arogya, and Saukhya. There are three things that is the goal of human life. So Ayurveda begins by setting the goal of our life itself. And health, disease, illness, wellness, all these goals are subsumed under this larger vision of what is it that we need to fulfill in our lives. And I also want to say that it's more than a coincidence that Ayurveda is perhaps the only medical system in the world which is known by such a term like Ayurveda, which means a knowledge of life. You have traditional Chinese medicine, you have traditional European medicine, you have traditional African medicine. So all these systems, even modern medicine is even today, although it has become cosmopolitan, is still known as Western medicine. So there is a kind of focus in time and space and a very narrow perspective of just looking at disease and health that seems to be ingrained even in the terminologies of medical systems around the world. Whereas Ayurveda has still not been translated as traditional Indian medicine, and I strongly wish that it will never be called in that way, because that very word is conveying this idea of universalism. Wherever there is life, there will be Ayurveda. That is what the texts say. Where there is nature, biodiversity, and where there is life, there Ayurveda will sprout. So it's a universal expression of human civilization, of human culture that our ancient rishis have expressed through the knowledge of Ayurveda. This is very similar to Sanskrit. Sanskrit is also a language which in its name conveys this idea of universality. Most of the languages are known by the place where it is spoken. Tamil in Tamil Nadu, Marathi in Maharashtra, or Hindi in Hindustan, German in Germany, French in France, and so on, English in England. So Sanskrit, the word meaning, it's not connected anywhere in space or time. Sanskrit just means the refined speech. Samskritam means that which is refined. So this character of universality, this focus on the development of human consciousness as a whole, this is very, very unique and important when we understand even the terminology Ayurveda. And it is with this perspective that I would like to connect Ayurveda and yoga together. Ayurveda comes with a goal of evolution of humanity. It's extremely broad, and this is a vision that also Ayurveda shares, that the goal of Ayurveda is Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. Let everyone in the world be happy or achieve that higher, realization of bliss. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya. Let everyone achieve the state of, freedom from disease. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Let everyone see, only auspicious events unfolding before them. And Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhaved. Let nobody get affected by sorrow. So this is the vision of Ayurveda. And Ayurveda sets us this goal in a very beautiful way by proposing this idea of Ayu, Arogyam, and Saukyam. Ayus actually means life. It means that we need to put all the efforts to preserve our life, preserve our body. This is very, very important. So what is interesting about Ayurveda, which I will also come to later, is that Ayurveda prepares you for yoga. Ayurveda works at ground zero. I mean, Ayurveda is very down to earth in its approach because it can handhold us from where, at what level of consciousness we are. Before we enter into yoga or other spiritual practices, there is a certain preparation that we need. Whereas for Ayurveda, comes down to the level of the common man. I mean, we can start with Ayurveda wherever we are, and slowly it prepares us and takes us to higher and higher levels of experience. So if Ayus is preservation of life, and I would say that most of the modern ideas of health, which is mostly related to survival and just absence of illnesses or just normalcy of your physical functions as we understand through laboratory testing. In Ayurveda, Arogya, which actually means health, of course the word Arogya means absence of disease, but it means an absolute feeling of ease of both the body and the mind. So the very definition of Arogya in Ayurveda goes beyond what is defined as normalcy in laboratory tests, because that only tells you that you are fit enough to survive. It doesn't tell that you are in a state of robustness, in a state of inner being in which you are able to express your higher energies in a powerful way. That is what Ayurveda calls as Arogya. So first we achieve Ayus, which is very important, self-preservation. But then Ayurveda says that we must go to the next step of Arogya. But very interestingly, that is not also the end of it. From Arogya, we have to move to the state of Saukhya. So Saukhya is a state of inner contentment and bliss. What Ayurveda would say is that how can you know that you're really healthy? In the ultimate analysis, you're healthy if you can be happy for no reason. Because today, we need a reason to be happy. I mean, our happiness is conditioned by the external circumstances in our life. So Saukhya is a state of mind in which you are spontaneously happy. So this is the way Ayurveda defines and gives us a vision of life. And now we will go into some more details of what we mean by this life, health, and wellness, and how Ayurveda blends and slowly takes you to yoga in what we can call as an integral, way of life. So we can have a limited existence. It's up to us. So this is what Ayurveda tells. I mean, you can have a goal of just surviving in your life, which is also fine, which means you are living only at the level of Ayu. So this is just living for survival. So most of the modern, healthcare system is still focused at this level of just preservation of Ayus. We can also live for higher achievements in life. And this means that we are living for a higher goal of Arogya, where you want a robust, functional body and mind, and a deeper integration of the body and mind. This is what Ayurveda would say, that you're living for Arogya. But then we can also live for a still higher goal of inner transformation and expansion of our consciousness. And that is the higher life to which Ayurveda beckons us. And that higher life happens when Ayurveda is able to connect you to yoga. So Ayurveda says that these, goals in life, Ayurveda has beautifully explained through 5 concepts here: Ayu, Arogyam, Aishwaryam, Yashas, and Shashwata Loka. So it says that these are 5 goals of human life, which we can evolve to consciously. and that we don't need to ignore any of these goals. We need to actually graduate from each goal and slowly move to higher goals in life. And the whole way of Ayurvedic way of living is telling you how you can achieve this without stress. I want to tell you later, I mean, without Ayurveda, yoga will appear to be so effortful. Ayurveda, if you ground yourself in Ayurveda first, yoga becomes effortless. So this is the key thing. Today, yoga has overtaken Ayurveda and become, went ahead. The whole world is now aware of yoga, but not as much aware of Ayurveda. It should actually be the other way around. Putting yoga before Ayurveda is like putting the cart before the horse. And you're already jumping into yoga without the preparation. If you have Ayurveda first, and then yoga becomes spontaneous. And that is that spontaneous movement into a state of yoga, which Ayurveda facilitates. That is actually the focus of our discussion today. So I want, the first goal in anybody's life is self-preservation. Pranayama, Ayurveda says that, every living being wants to preserve itself. This is Ayus. And once you ensure that you have Ayus, your goal changes. You are now looking for something higher. And that higher goal in life is Arogyam. Nobody wants to have a long life if it is not healthy. So it's not lifespan. Once you have lifespan, you want also span. And once you have health span, you want resources. That is called Aishwarya. Now, to get all these things together is the biggest challenge of life. So this is how some of the Ayurvedic texts start with this question. Is it at all possible for any human being to achieve all these goals in life, which is actually what we are also unconsciously seeking? I mean, if you were to look at anybody's life very deeply, I mean, our unconscious search is for these goals in life. You want Ayus, you want Arogyam, and if you have both Ayus and Arogyam, then you want Aishwaryam. Aishwaryam means, having the abundant resources with which you can find full expression of your higher meaning in life. It does not just mean that you are blessed with a lot of wealth. If you have Aishwaryam, then you want recognition. This is called Yashas. So people are not satisfied with just resources. They also want recognition. And a lot of people who have success also get depressed because if they don't reach to the next goal, then at that point they can feel a total loss of meaning, and can slip into a state of depression. So that is the state of the goal of yashas. And even if you have yashas, finally you realize that these are all, temporary. What is it that you can attain which is, permanent, which stays with you permanently? And that is called as Shashwata Lokam. And it is when you mature into this, seeking this higher goal of Shashwata Loka, that you're actually ready for yoga. Today, yoga has been reduced to some physical exercises. And I think I want to tell this a bit bluntly, is that you have reduced yoga to the goal of seeking Ayus. So for seeking Ayus alone, you don't need, this kind of a sophisticated tool like yoga. Of course, yoga can also help you achieve some of the lower goals of life. But the tool of yoga is much, much, much more powerful. I mean, yoga has the power to transform us completely to another level of existence. And that is what Ayurveda tells, that if you enter into this process of yoga through Ayurveda, then the transformation becomes complete, smooth, and very beautiful. And here Ayurveda tells you how you can lead this meaningful life. Ayurveda classifies life into different categories and gives you this perspective of what I mentioned in the beginning, that, Ayurveda says that your life becomes fulfilled. You become the healthiest being in this universe when you are able to offer your life as a flower, as a prayer, to the infinite expanse of the cosmos, of that vast consciousness, which actually, gave birth to your own existence. And how is that possible? So Ayurveda says you can lead a life which is called Dukkhamayu, which means it's a very painful and sorrowful life for you. And it can be ahitam for others, which can also create pain for others. This is the most wretched kind of existence that you can have. And it's very interesting that Ayurveda brings these things into the definition of health. Because Ayurveda says that, and I think today in the COVID-19 situation, like never before, we are praying that even people, all around the world, let them be healthy, because otherwise our life has now completely been jeopardized. I mean, we are completely into a frozen state. Never before did we realize that what we have been praying for centuries, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. I think COVID is making us to, chant this prayer with such deep feeling and intent like never before. Because now we realize that unless every being in this world is healthy, we cannot be healthy. And this pandemic is like nature just, initiating a process of self-healing. I wouldn't even call this as a disease. It is a nature's frantic attempt to heal itself. And if you really look at what this pandemic has done, of course, it has disrupted our lives, but it's not such a ferocious killer itself. I mean, it has brought about a lot of changes that is helping the earth to heal itself. And this is a lesson that we have to learn if we are to, construct a more holistic, more wholesome, and more healthy life in the future. This pandemic has come to teach us some lessons, and these are the lessons that yoga and Ayurveda has been trying to convey to us from, time immemorial. So how do we achieve a life which is sukham for us and also hitam for the world? And when we reach this point of, where the seeking of your own inner pleasure, of your own personal, happiness, not only does it not conflict with the happiness of others, but also promotes the happiness of others. This is what Ayurveda calls as a healthy existence. Today we have reduced this to, because Ayurveda says that it is asuric way of thinking to live long, that I want a healthy body. I want to live long. In our Puranas and our traditions, it was the Asuras who would, come up with these kind of prayers. Let nobody be able to kill me. Let me have a very healthy body. And today, I would like to tell this very bluntly. We have made tremendous advances in medical science like never before. I mean, medical science is progressing in leaps and bounds. We are at the cutting edge of new research and new discoveries. But this is all happening from an asuric state of mind. And that is the tragedy. I mean, the whole achievements become self-defeating because of this state of mind. And this is why Ayurveda says it is from a state of yoga that you have to engage with the world for you to have a benign existence. Ayurveda never said that, we should live infinitely. We should live a full life, a life full enough so that we can transform our consciousness, discover that inner sense of fulfillment, and also spread it to the people around us. I mean, that is the best gift that we can give for ourselves and for the world. This is the goal of health that Ayurveda has set before us. So, the definition of health, the higher definition of health in Ayurveda, it's called as swasthyam. So we have arogyam and we have also swasthyam. So arogyam, so we have ayu, arogyam and swasthyam. Instead of saukhya, I'm using another word here. And these three levels are very, very important. Swasthyam actually means, it's coming from the Sanskrit word swastha. Swastha means swasmin sthiyate iti swastha. So arogya means a state where you are not afflicted by any physical maladies, physical or mental. This is very, very important. Because, when we talk about health today, there has been this overemphasis on physical health. So much so that we have ignored mental health. There are people who may have, physically good parameters, but their mental state is really very bad. And today, psychologists, and even healthcare professionals are slowly beginning to understand that mental health is even more important than physical health. Somebody who's physically ill would be able to cope with that physical illness if they have sound mental health. So mental health is actually more important even for you to deal with physical illnesses. So in Ayurveda, when we say Arogya, it actually means good mental health also. I want to tell you that this Ayurvedic word called Aushadham, which we translate as medicine. I mean, unfortunately, most of these translations are really very bad. They do no justice to the beauty of the original Sanskrit words. When you translate Aushadham as medicine, the entire concept is lost. Aushadha means a burning transformation of your rasa dhatu, a burning transformation of rasa dhatu that leads to the expression of your higher consciousness. Osha is paka of your rasa dhatu. Osho nama rasa. Osho nama pakaha. So the paka of your rasa dhatu, which is the digested essence of your food, which means the whole protoplasm, the whole cytoplasm, your whole, the fluids in your body, they are undergoing a profound chemical transformation. And what is the purpose of this transformation? It is to express a higher consciousness. So if you take many modern medicines, one of the biggest problems is many of the modern chemical medicines, which we call according to Ayurveda as Visha. Visha means Vishadam Janayadi. It creates a Vishada state of your mind. This is one of the biggest challenges. So I'm not saying in Ayurveda, we say we can use Visha also as medicine in certain conditions. But today the problem is we are ingesting a lot of toxins in the name of medicine, in the form of food. In order to preserve our foods, we are poisoning ourselves. In order to preserve our environment, everything, we are poisoning ourselves and inducing a state of depression and intoxication. And this is reducing the quality of our consciousness. So Ayurveda is very, very particular that, we liberate our consciousness through this process of, discovering health. So in Ayurveda, we say, what is the state of health when we realize the unity with the whole universe? And the whole universe becomes, part of me, and I become part of the universe. As Charaka Samhita tells so beautifully, Sarvalogam Atmani, Atmanam cha Sarvaloke Samam Anupashyata, Satya Buddhi Samutpadyata. He says that is the truth, that is the true understanding, that I am part of this universe and the universe is part of me. And you must feel that continuity of your being, that I am not limited to this body. And this realization, this experience is what Ayurveda calls as yoga. Yoga means reuniting with the source, reuniting with the entire cosmos. This is beautifully described in Srishti Shariram. In Ayurveda, we don't start studying, medicine by dissecting a dead body. We said this is absolutely dangerous. If a medical student starts study of medicine by dissecting a dead body, it becomes insensitized to life itself. You don't respect life. In Ayurveda, we study Ayurveda by starting with Srishti. How did the universe emerge? And how the microcosm emerged out of the macrocosm. This is how we start studying Ayurveda. So we understand what is life. We understand the whole background from which life emerged. And when a student begins the study of Ayurveda by seeing the birth of a new life, he learns to respect life. We start the study of the science of life by gazing at this wonder of how a new life is created. So that's why it's a science of life. It's not the science of death. It's also the science of life and death. But this is the insight that Ayurveda gives us. So this is the goal that Ayurveda sets. So what Ayurveda says is that, we need to prepare our body to reach into the state of yoga. I want to tell you that there are many Ayurvedic texts which tell us that, we shouldn't actually practice yoga. Ayurveda puts a lot of restrictions on practicing yoga, especially advanced techniques of pranayama. I was surprised to see in one chapter in a classical Ayurvedic text that if these people do pranayama, they will get mental, psychological problems. They will get vata, neurological diseases. I was very, very surprised. So then when I looked at the commentary and studied it more deeply, the texts were saying that, when yoga happens, when you're able to move prana through the subtle channels of your body. which means your inner body has to open up before you can start moving prana through that. Otherwise, there is so much resistance from your physical body that as you try to do this forced pranayama, your body gets heated up, your neurological system is affected. It can lead to neurological and eventually even psychological disturbances. This is very clearly mentioned in Ayurveda. In Ayurveda, we have a process called Panchakarma. I think many of you must have heard. It's cleansing of the body. And in yoga, we have Shat Kriyas or Shat Karmas. Now, if you look at it both, in Ayurveda, through Panchakarma, we are removing the gross wastes from the system. And after the gross wastes are removed, then doing the Shatkriyas of yoga, you are able to remove the subtle wastes also. Like when you do the Bhastrika, Kapalabhati, all these type of pranayamas, you're opening up the nadi. But before you do that, your sthula malas or the gross wastes of the body has to be removed. So here I want to tell you how Ayurveda is preparing you for that higher state of yoga, and why Ayurveda should be the foundation for yoga. And if you are leading a life, so Ayurveda begins with the diet. How to reduce the noise in your body, how to make your body crystal clear, free from impurities. It's like we say that now there is if consciousness was a signal, if it was a sound, a beautiful melody, then the body and the mind, the turbulences in the body and the mind are the noise that causes the disturbance, that makes us to, that drowns this beautiful melody of our own consciousness. So Ayurveda says it that we must remove the noise of the body, the noise from the mind, so that the signal of consciousness, expresses, like a Dolby digital experience. So Ayurveda purifies your body. And this is why the sage Patanjali has been, appreciated. I mean, we pray to Patanjali for having done this remarkable, task of purifying our body, speech, and mind, so that we become noiseless without any emotional turbulences, noiseless because of no, complications in our metabolic processes, noiseless because our mind is calm and established in itself. And in that state of inner silence, we can experience the bliss of our inner consciousness. We can experience that signal, that beautiful experience, that beautiful melody of our own inner consciousness. So this is the purpose of Ayurveda and yoga. And Ayurveda says that the physical body has to be always active. That is, if your body is stagnant, then the transformation is stopped, because the body is something which is continuously burning. This is what in Ayurveda we call as Agni. Your body is ignited. It's like a machine which is burning and transforming matter into energy. And it is that energy which fuels your mind. And it is with that empowered mind that you are going to take that launch into the world of a deeper and higher consciousness. So it's very, very important that you take care of your body in the right way. And Ayurveda says that, the type of food that you eat. And if you build up Rajas and Tamas in your system, then your mind is also drawn, to a lower level of awareness. So to rise in our awareness, we need to start from, the food that we take, our lives, how we harmonize with nature within and without. And as we follow this process of Ayurveda, there is a point when you become ready for yoga and the higher practice of yoga. So when I say from illness to wellness, that is the first step that Ayurveda takes you through, is actually this inner transformation of your at the physical level, that it's possible to completely change the chemistry of your body. This is what the classical Ayurvedic texts say. Many of you, I do not know, some of you may have heard about this concept of rasayana. And today in this period of COVID-19, we all say, in Ayurveda, we can build immunity. I mean, this is, of course, a very simplistic idea of what Ayurveda can do for COVID-19 and very wishful thinking also. That's another topic, of course, to discuss about how Ayurveda can help you to withstand this pandemic. But Rasayana is a kind of medication which is normally understood as something which enhances your immunity. We look at it as a purely physical phenomenon. But if you look at the Sanskrit word Rasayana, Ayana means path, and Rasa means, the digested essence of your food, the life fluid. So Rasayana means the path of transformation of your life fluid. And our classical text, what is that path of transformation? The path of transformation is that it has to transform to in such a profound manner that you are able to express a higher consciousness. So this is so beautifully explained in the Charaka Samhita as na kevalam dirghamihayurasnute rasayanam yo vidhivan nishevate. Somebody who takes rasayana will not just achieve a long life or a healthy life. What will happen? Gatimsa devarshi nishevitam shubham prapadyade brahma tatheti chakshen. A person who follows this path of rasayana is not just able to achieve a long life, but he is able to transform his consciousness to reach this higher state of Brahma, that state, Akshaya state, that state in which there is no more, distortion, transformation, or, destruction. So this is the beautiful synergy between Ayurveda and yoga. So it's our minds that need to be still and our bodies that need to be active. So, today it has been found that sitting is the new smoking. Sitting is a killer. It's more dangerous than even smoking. So then you might ask, what about yogis who sit in, Padmasana or Sukhasana for hours together? But that is the, point here, that other than through the practice of yoga, keeping your body still is extremely dangerous, because in the state of yoga, these asanas have been designed in such a way that there is no obstruction in the flow of prana. So asya sukham, this is what Ayurveda says, sitting in a tamasic state where it feels physically very comfortable for you, where you lose your alertness, awareness, and you're just relaxing. That asya sukham is the basis for many diseases. And today science says that sitting idle is inviting death. Sit and die. And I'm not exaggerating. There are a lot of studies which have shown how simply sitting can be dangerous. So this is a big challenge also in this COVID time, that it's very important that we learn to sit in yogic poses if we have to sit for a long time. Otherwise, we are going to invite a lot of diseases, because you need to make sure your prana is flowing. And your mind has to be still. Your body has to be active. This is what Ayurveda says, an active body and a still mind. When your body is active and you're focused, your mind also becomes focused. And in that stillness of the mind, you can create a moment of inner silence, in which you can, discover and unite to a higher consciousness. This is the process which Ayurveda puts before us, how we can move from illness to wellness to stillness. This webinar session is as short as our own life. And I'm reminded that, even in our life, things will come to an end. And within that short period, there are a lot of important things to discover. And what makes the difference is whether we are able to discriminate between what is essential and what is non-essential. So I will just conclude with a small anecdotal story, what we really mean by that stillness to which Ayurveda and yoga can take you. I'm reminded of the story of a guru who asked his disciple, "Who are you?" And the disciple said, his name, I'm so and so. I'm sure many of you must have heard this story, but I'm just putting it in context here. And the guru said, "No, I did not ask your name. I asked who you are." And then the disciple said, "I am the son of so and so." And then the guru says, "No, I did not ask who your father was. I'm asking you who you are." And then he tells, I'm from India, I'm from this family. And the guru keeps telling that I didn't ask, I did not ask from where you are or what your background is. I'm just simply plainly asking you who you are. Finally, the disciple gets frustrated and asked the guru whether, you are pulling my leg. And then the guru said, you gave me so many answers. Don't you see the point? Every time you had to define yourself, you had to refer to something outside of you. You needed a father outside, you needed a country outside, you needed something outside of you to define yourself. I wanted you to define yourself without, referring to anything outside you. What are you in an absolute sense? What are you at your inner being? When there is no external world, when you are not in contact with an external world, what is that deep awareness? So whatever you have told now is the masks that you are wearing, in your embodied existence. These are necessary for your worldly life, but these are not sufficient. This understanding of yourself is not sufficient for you to elevate yourself to the ultimate goal of life, the ultimate transformation of your consciousness. So what you are deep at that core happens only when you still your mind and you create that inner silence where you are face to face with your own inner self. And this is what Ayurveda says, that Ayurveda is like a mirror where you can see yourself, where you can unmask yourself and discover your true nature as a higher consciousness. So I think I will stop here because that is the plan of this whole discussion today, that we will keep some time for interaction. So I thank once again Indica Yoga for this great opportunity to share my thoughts on this topic of yoga and Ayurveda. And I do hope that we will all be able to put to full use and potential not only our lives but all the tools that we have from our rishis in the form of Veda and Ayurveda. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Guru Pyo Namah. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Rammanohar. After the closing mantra just now, the prayer, I don't even feel like, and after the entire talk, I don't even feel like giving a wrap up, but for the sake of the system, and I'll give a brief wrap up followed by some questions from the audience. Doctor, first of all, you started with such a beautiful vocalization of such a beautiful mantra. And that itself showed your depth of knowledge and across all the fields of wellness, from mantra to Ayurveda to yoga and so forth. You've done such a great job. You've done such a great job making it so easy for us to understand, even for those of us who are new to the way of Ayurveda, new to these topics and these terminologies. You started leading us from clarifying first the definition and the vastness of Ayurveda, what the importance of it is in yoga, how it makes yoga effortless, the importance of prayer in Ayurveda, and especially in the current global public health scenario. It made us realize the importance for caring for all living beings, like you said, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. And you continued explaining how, and what was so poignant, that Ayurveda is not about the study of a sick body, rather it's first the universe. And I think that, and the importance of both physical and mental steadiness, and I think that is something that we can all take away. You showed us how these are sister spiritualities. I won't say sciences, but more spiritualities, because then using Ayurveda and yoga, you showed us how to come into inner silence and stillness. And to quote a couple people have written your exact quotes: "You are healthy when you are happy with no reason." And throughout, you've introduced us to the great Ayurveda texts and terminologies. Even still, we have a couple of, even with all of this knowledge, the people want to know more. And so there's a few questions. The first is, and I think this is coming from towards the end of your talk, you were talking about bringing Ayurveda into our lives. How to apply Ayurveda in daily routine. Can you provide some basic advice that one can begin to implement?
Yes. You know, Ayurveda says that we must live, each person has their own constitution. I mean, we must understand that we are unique. Our fingerprint is unique in this universe. And we have to discover a way of life that is very specific for us. So the first step is to understand yourself, your physical constitution, your mental constitution. And then Ayurveda becomes a user's manual. So for some people, some foods are good, some people, some foods are not good. Some foods are good in some season, some food is not good. So having this sensitivity, bringing this sensitivity into your life is, you know, what Ayurveda says as leading an Ayurvedic life. It's not following a strict timetable. I mean, many people, when they come to an Ayurvedic physician, they want a prescription written, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, what I should do. But this is not the way Ayurveda works, because Ayurveda says that Ayurveda wants us to develop that sensitivity, become aware of our surroundings so that you know spontaneously what is good or what is bad for you. But for that, you need to begin with a certain discipline in your life. So there are some ground rules, like, you know, diet. When it comes to diet, some general rules I can say. One is waking up with nature, which we call as Brahma Muhurta, because that is a point where, you know, these inner sensibilities are awakened. If you ask me, can I wake up at after sunrise? It's fine. You will still live. I mean, you will not die, but you will fail to awaken your inner sensibilities if you have a habit of, you know, waking at that time. The other thing is, of course, also what we call as Kaliyama. We divide the day into different times. And I want to just talk about Kaliyama very briefly and conclude. This is the time between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. It's very interesting that it is called Kali Yamam. Kali is the dark one and cuts away your head, you know, your ego. And this is the time when melatonin, which is also called as the dark hormone, is at its peak. Nature wants to put you into sleep. It wants to anesthetize you so that all the repair work can happen. You know, that is the time when the body repairs itself, the 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. sleep, when Kali comes and cuts away your head so that you are not interfering with what is going on in your body. So Kali refreshes you and makes you ready for the next day. So this sleeping at this time is very, very important. And the third thing is, you know, today it's called as intermittent fasting, but allowing the food that you eat to be completely transformed. So this means that if you have an early evening meal and then give a gap of at least 12 hours, Ayurveda says it's best to fast at night. Don't strain the body. So if you have an early evening meal and then a slightly late meal in the morning, not very late, but maybe around 10, 11, then you create 12 to 16 hours of food-free state for your body, where all the transformation happens. You are getting into a state of, you know, fat adaptive state. And so there are some simple tips like this. I just thought I will introduce a few things. But once again, I want to underline the fact is that Ayurveda aims to enable you to develop these inner sensitivities so that you're dynamically leading a life that is in harmony with your inner nature and with the world around you.
Super. Thank you so much, Doctor. I think that it gives us a lot of very simple tips that we can start with. There are a ton of questions going on. However, I'm going to focus on some that may be more general. One question is, you did discuss the difference between traditional world medicines and Ayurveda. And there's a question about what is common and different between Indian and Tibetan Ayurvedic systems.
You know, Tibetan system has drawn from both Ayurveda and the Chinese medical system. So if you look at it from a historical point of view, Tibetan system is a blend of Ayurveda and Chinese systems. So in fact, there is a lot of Ayurveda in Tibetan system because many Ayurvedic textbooks have been preserved because they got translated into Tibetan. But I want to tell you, many of these systems which have developed in Southeast Asia are just regional adaptations of one basic wisdom. So in India itself, we have Kerala Ayurveda, which is Ayurvedic principles adapted to this time and space. So it doesn't mean that Kerala Ayurveda is totally different from the, the overall, what we call as Ayurveda as such. Siddha system is the same principles applied to a different time and place. In the north of India, Ayurveda is practiced slightly differently. So in Tibetan system, because Tibet has a very challenging climate, even their Buddhists also there eat dried meat and all that. So this is a Desha-kala adaptation of Ayurveda. That is what I would like to summarize it very briefly. So in principle, it's the same, but in its expression, you can find a lot of adaptations.
Great. The next question, you had talked about why pranayama is not advised in Ayurveda, like which are the, what are some of the pranayamas not advised? And if so, who can do pranayama?
No, in Ayurveda, we advise only simple deep breathing. That is okay. Other ones we say should be only done under the supervision of an expert yoga teacher. In Ayurveda, our prakriti is also very different. Some people may be vata constitution, some pitta, some a combination. So some of them people may have ama or channel blockages in the system. So if such people practice advanced cleansing pranayamas like Kapalabhati, Bhastrika and all that, that can lead to problems. I have also seen many people coming in our clinical practice who have had problems, after reading books or watching videos and doing some pranayamas. They have suffered because of that. So I think this awareness needs to be clearly spread. So simple deep breathing is absolutely no problem. Other advanced techniques of pranayama you should do under a proper expert. Even in yoga, pranayama is not the first step. You need yama, niyama, asana, and then only you can come to pranayama.
Super. Okay, so coming to maybe the last major question. We'll see how much time we have. I'm going to take the liberty of another 10 minutes or so. But the last major question, which is so relevant to today, so many people have messaged about coronavirus, including one Ayurvedic doctor. So I'll try to sum up. Can you give us any insights to the research that is being done from the Ayurvedic perspective on coronavirus? Does the perspective of Ayurveda necessitate drug trials in either allopathic or Ayurvedic drugs? How to recover from the inflammation of lung tissue, and what is the best rasa aushadha in the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, based on different prakritis, and is there one thing?
Yes. So I think I have to be very careful in what I say here because I'm part of two committees, the task force committees of the Kerala government and also the Ministry of Ayush for COVID-19. And we have been working, I can just explain on behalf of the task force because I have to be very careful on what I say, lest it gets kind of misinterpreted. The good thing is, that Ayurveda, a lot of work has been done by the governments to see how Ayurveda can also be brought, into the forefront in this battle against the COVID-19 pandemic, especially because, modern medicine and Ayurveda are at the same situation here. There is no known cure or medicine for this disease. So we are both in the same arena. And now the question is, in modern medicine, they have a method to develop a new medicine for a new disease. One is repurposing of known medicines, which is what is happening now. You have hydroxychloroquine, remdesivir, favipiravir, and all these Fabiflu. All these things are medicines which are already been in use and which they, on basis of some rationale, there is a hypothesis that it could be also helpful in COVID-19, and they are being repurposed. But to date, there is no new medicine The latest thing that modern medicine has discovered is the utility of a steroid, dexamethasone. And some physicians say methylprednisolone is better in advanced COVID cases where there is an immune overdrive and you need to suppress the immune system. Now, this is how modern medicine works. The other thing that they're looking at is, of course, one is the concept of herd immunity. When a lot of people get infected, the virus cannot infect any more people and then the disease dies away. Or the other thing is vaccination. You develop a vaccination. But because the virus is mutating and even after infection, it's not clear whether one infection with COVID-19 confers lifelong immunity. These are challenges. So what can Ayurveda do in this situation? This is a natural question. Do we have ready-made remedies which we can just give off the shelf? Or do we also need to do trials? So here I want to say that from the ministry, Ayush ministry, there are 3 herbs and a formulation that have already been chosen and clinical trials have started on it on one side. So ashwagandha, which has been found to be able to, prevent, certain studies have shown that this plant has the ability to prevent the virus from entering into your system and multiplying. So that is being given as a preventive measure. And then there are certain herbs like, Tinospora, licorice, then long pepper, and then a formulation called Ayush 64, which is being led by modern allopathic doctors. These trials are being led by modern allopathic doctors, and these trials are underway. And in some time, we should be able to get the results. From the task force, we don't want to be over enthusiastic like, some other people. Now we have also got into a controversy by premature, announcements of trial results. So this has been going on for some time. We will know that. But really what Ayurveda can do, Ayurveda has its own way of understanding a new disease. I want to tell you that the Charaka Samhita, which is a very ancient textbook, talks about Janapadodvamsa, which means destruction of human settlements by epidemic diseases. This is described in Ayurveda. Epidemics are not totally, new diseases. And a textbook like Sushruta Samhita is even talking about respiratory illnesses which spread in society, causing symptoms which are very similar to SARS, COVID. He says Jwara, Shwasa, Kasa, Gandhatjnana, which is loss of smell. This is described in the Sushruta Samhita, which looks like an upper respiratory viral infection. And Sushruta clearly says these things will happen and again if we disturb the harmony of nature. If the ecology is disturbed, if we break human-animal habitats, these diseases will come. This has been predicted in Sushruta Samhita. I have been going on pointing out that Sushruta was the first whistleblower of, corona-like pandemics many centuries ago. So Ayurveda has a way to understand a new disease. And on that basis, we have some rationale of how to use, how to choose a herb based on each individual constitution. And that kind of an approach has not yet been taken for COVID-19, which is based on Ayurvedic principles of understanding. Now we are choosing ashwagandha because they do a docking study where they find that this can inhibit a particular protein, but Ayurveda has its own idea of what the disease does to the doshas, dhatus. That kind of a work has not yet happened. And I strongly believe that the full potential of Ayurveda can come only when we are able to bring this approach of Ayurveda into the forefront. And now some of us are working for that. Having said that, I can say that Ayurveda has a role to play in helping us cope up with this disease. This is the last point I will say. I think it's important because COVID-19, it's really a paradox. In some people, it just comes so gently, touches you like a feather that you may not even have realized that you got an infection. Whereas in some people, it unleashes such ferocity, with such ferociousness that you are taken into a ventilator and you just die. There is a message here that those who have taken care of them, so the people who are having comorbidities, whose immune system are not functioning well, these are the people who are really being beaten up by COVID-19. People who are having their immune systems stable, and those who do not have these comorbidities, which means the message that COVID-19 tells us, if you take care of yourself, I am as gentle as a feather. If you have not taken care of yourself, I can completely destroy you, explode you in no moment. So from all these things, the old message of Charaka and Sushruta is what comes to my mind. Tasya moolam adharmaha. All these pandemics arise because of adharma. Adharma to yourself, adharma to the world around you. So Ayurveda will not give a vaccine. That's not the way of Ayurveda. Ayurveda says if you take Ayurvedic medicines with a good Ayurvedic physician, I'm sure you may get infected, but nothing will happen. I cannot say that if you take Ayurvedic medicine, you will not get COVID-19. You may still get COVID-19. It may be very mild, or it will just pass away without creating a problem. That is the support that Ayurveda can give. But no Ayurvedic physician can guarantee a cure, because a pandemic like this does not need to be cured. We only need to learn how to cope with it. It will go away on its own, because all viral infections are like that. We still have not found a way to kill viruses. If our immune system is strong, we overcome it. And that is where Ayurveda will help.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for shedding the light on our current situation as well. There are dozens of more questions. However, because of the time constraint, and in order to honor everybody's time and your time as well, we're going to wrap up here. Your talk has been extremely calming and conducive also to our needs today to become still and observant. Just even how you speak with one of Amma's old bhajans, Hidamai Midamai Priyamakanam. I
Yes.
feel such a wonderful rapport with you because of that, because of how you speak. I would like to continue the conversation, and I'm sure many of the other members of the audience would be interested as well. So for the audience, we will be placing Doctor's webpage in the link in the chat box, so you can find out more about him, his research, and connect that way. As a closing, I would like you to share your final thought, but before that, a few announcements from Vinayji.
Namaste. Namaste, Rammanohar ji and Soumya ji.
Namaste.
I think the definition that you gave for a healthy person, one who can be happy without any reason, he is a healthy man. I think that will stay with all of us, I think, and will definitely give us a guideline also as to how we need to chart out our paths. Thank you very much for that. So I request Srinivas ji to present us tomorrow's events. I'll give you just a brief introduction to all of you as to what is happening tomorrow, so that you can join us tomorrow as well. Tomorrow morning in the 7 to 8 a.m. session, we have Sri Katyasan K, who will be speaking on and also giving us a practice, the uniqueness of mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness meditation is a very popular practice, but he looked into the Indian traditions, the Vedantic, the Upanishadic sources. He has traced the roots in the Upanishads and also is bringing that practice to all of us. It will be again a power-packed session. So I invite you all to join us. In the noon session, we have Dr. Lalita Gaurav, who will be speaking on yoga for homeostasis. So it's all about bringing the balance. Wellness comes from a harmony, comes from balance, and how you bring the balance at the bodily level, and how does yoga contribute towards it. That will be the content of Dr. Lalita Gaurav's talk in the noon. And in the evening, we have Andre Rie, who is one of the biggest names in the European world, in the yoga community. He will be giving an explanation and also a practice on Nidra Yoga, discover peace of mind through deep relaxation and inner concentration. In fact, we are familiar with Yoga Nidra. Andre has come up with a new approach, a unique approach based on his practice, his insights, calling it as Nidra Yoga, and he will give us a glimpse of that practice. That will be a little bit of in French and in English, and it will be a 1.5 hour session. I invite you all again to join all these sessions and make the most of what is being offered by all these teachers from across the world in such a generous manner. So with this brief announcement for tomorrow, I'd also like to invite you for Sunday evening talk. It will be an interaction with the video tribute that Indica Yoga and Center for Soft Power has come up with. That is the Namami Yoga Vidya. Most of you might have seen it a few times. Namami Yoga Vidya is one of the beautiful and powerful presentations of a seeker submitting or surrendering himself or herself to the divine, brought about by Rukmini Vijay Kumar and many other artists, joiners who were the part of that team. They will all be with us on Sunday evening in the 7 to 8:30 slot for an interaction. And I again invite you all to join us for this one. So with these words, I again hand over to Rammanohar ji to share with us what he would like to take us as a take-home message or an advice, whether on the lifestyle or how do we move on this path of this beautifully titled talk from illness to wellness to stillness. So one last advice, Rammanohar ji.
So stay and thank you again for this opportunity. So I think what is also striking me, I'll just share what has also struck to me as a realization during these difficult times of this pandemic, is that I realized that nature is giving us a very strong message that we have to take care of ourselves. Self-empowerment is the way forward. And this Ayurveda says we need to awaken our health intelligence. Otherwise, this whole theme of transformation, moving from illness to wellness or stillness, is not possible until we awaken our inner health intelligence. I've been repeating this many times. The WHO slogan when we were a student was that health for all by 2000 AD. It looked as though health is something that can be given to us from outside, swallowing a pill or taking a medicine. From that it evolved, and then it came to universal health care for everyone, which means you have all the hospitals, the healthcare providers. But again, the focus is, health is something which is going to be provided to us by this whole infrastructure and paraphernalia. And in 2020, we were supposed to have achieved universal health coverage, and COVID-19 is really mocking at us. But in big countries, advanced countries like US, Italy, Europe, people are not even able to find a bed for themselves in the hospital. So this is what universal health coverage has come to. So going beyond this, our goal for the future should be health intelligence for all, which I call as the sensibilities and sensitivities that Ayurveda and yoga awakens in you. It is said that if you get into a yoga way of life, you won't be able to even eat, food that is harmful for you. That is the kind of health awareness that we have to grow into. Today, we find it so difficult to give up junk food, but in the state of yoga, you will find it very difficult to accept junk food. And that is what we call as awakened health intelligence. And I hope that with the power of yoga and Ayurveda and the lessons that this pandemic is teaching us, we will discover this higher way of living. Thank you. Namaste and prayers. Lokaha samastaha sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, Rammanohar ji, and thank you, Soumya ji. One last word. Many people are asking about the video. All these presentations that we have had so far and the ones that we'll have in the future, all these presentations will be made available on Indica Yoga YouTube channel. So please subscribe, please watch. If you have missed out something, you can always connect back. And you can also get to know the schedules of the coming week on our website, indicayoga.com, in the calendar or in the event section. So please stay tuned and await the beautiful presentations, talks, and practice sessions that are still on the way. So thank you very much to each one of you.